My father-in-law David passed away unexpectedly. Massive heart attack at 62 years old, completely out of nowhere. The guy seemed invincible, you know? He'd built Mitchell Industries from literally nothing over 30 years, started in his garage, and turned it into a around 40 million manufacturing operation. The funeral drew around 200 people. Business partners, employees, family, everyone in black, everyone looking devastated. David was one of those rare bosses that people genuinely respected because he actually gave a damn about his workers, paid competitive wages, and treated everyone fairly. I'd been with Mitchell Industries for 7 years, working as operations director. David brought me into the company when I married his daughter, Jennifer. From day one, he treated me like the son he never had. He personally trained me on every aspect of the business, spent countless hours teaching me about manufacturing, logistics, supply chain management, everything. We had this routine where we'd have lunch together every single Tuesday, just the two of us, talking through strategy and operations. He'd bounce ideas off me, ask my opinion on major decisions, and actually listen to what I had to say. It meant the world to me. Jennifer worked at the company too, handling business development and client relations. She was incredible at her job, honestly. She could walk into any room and close a deal. Charismatic, persuasive, knew how to schmooze clients. But she had zero interest in the operational side of things. Whenever David or I talked about manufacturing processes, logistics coordination, or supply chain optimization, her eyes would glaze over. That stuff bored her senseless. She wanted the high-level executive experience, the status, the corner office, but not the nitty-gritty work of actually running a manufacturing operation. 3 days after we buried David, I was still in this fog of grief when I got an email. The subject line was mandatory meeting, and it came from Jennifer's new company email address. The board of directors had appointed her CEO literally the day before the funeral. I was honestly happy for her at first. I thought it made sense, you know? His daughter taking over his legacy. The email was cold and professional, though. It said to report to the executive office at 2 p.m. that day and to bring my building access card and company laptop. Reading it now, that should have been a massive red flag, but I was still grieving and not thinking clearly. I showed up at 1:55 p.m. because I'm always punctual. There was this young guy at the reception desk I'd never seen before, apparently Jennifer's new assistant. He told me to wait. So I sat in the reception area for 20 minutes while this kid just typed on his computer. Finally, at 2:20, he told me I could go in. Jennifer was sitting behind David's massive oak desk. She'd already completely redecorated the entire office. New curtains on the windows, different artwork on the walls. The photo of David with his very first employee, this picture he'd treasured for 30 years, was gone. Replaced with some generic, abstract painting that probably cost a fortune, but meant nothing. It felt wrong, disrespectful even. "Have a seat," she said without looking up from her computer. Didn't even acknowledge me. I sat down in one of the chairs facing the desk and waited. She kept typing for another minute, then finally closed her laptop. When she looked at me, there was this coldness in her eyes I'd never seen before, like she was looking at a complete stranger. "I'm restructuring the management team," she said flatly. "Your position is being eliminated effective immediately. You'll receive 2 weeks severance, which is more than generous considering your performance issues." I just sat there staring at her, trying to process what she'd just said. Performance issues? What the hell are you talking about? She slid a folder across the desk toward me. "This is your termination letter. Sign it. Security will escort you out." "You're firing me? 3 days after your father's funeral? This is a business decision, nothing personal. Sign the document." I picked up the folder and read through it. Generic corporate language about restructuring and elimination of redundant positions. Nothing specific whatsoever, no actual performance metrics, no documentation of any issues, nothing I could even respond to, just vague corporate speak. "I'm not signing this," I said. She pressed a button on her desk phone. "Security, please come to the executive office immediately." 2 security guards appeared within 30 seconds. Way too fast. They'd obviously been waiting right outside the door. One of them, this guy named Steve, who I'd known for years, looked uncomfortable as hell. "Mr. Anderson, please collect your belongings and vacate the premises," Steve said quietly. He couldn't even make eye contact. I stood up slowly and looked directly at Jennifer. She was already back on her computer, typing away like I wasn't even there, like I was already gone. I walked out without saying another word. They escorted me to my office and stood there, watching while I packed 7 years of my life into a cardboard box. Photos of me and David at company events, my coffee mug with the company logo, some books on manufacturing management, personal items. 7 years of building relationships, learning the business, becoming part of the company culture, gone in 15 minutes. Then they walked me through the entire main floor of the building. Past employees I'd worked with every single day for years. People I'd had lunch with, collaborated with on projects, helped train. Everyone looked away. Some looked embarrassed, others looked confused, a few looked genuinely upset. But nobody said anything. Nobody could. I kept my head up and kept walking, but inside I was humiliated and confused as hell. Steve and the other guard walked me all the way to my car in the parking lot. They stood there and watched me get in and drive away, like I was some kind of criminal who might try to sneak back in. I drove home in complete silence, my mind racing. My wife had just fired me without any real explanation, without any warning, 3 days after burying her father. She'd treated me like a problem employee who needed to be removed as quickly and quietly as possible. We'd been married for 7 years. We'd worked together at her father's company for 7 years, and she'd just had me escorted out by security like I was nothing. I pulled into our driveway and just sat in the car for probably 20 minutes, trying to make sense of what had happened. Then something clicked in my brain, a memory from 2 years earlier. David had called me into his office one afternoon, closed the door, and handed me this large manila envelope. It was thick and heavy. "Put this somewhere safe," he'd said. "Don't open it unless something happens to me. Or if you need protection, you'll know when the time comes." I'd asked him what it was, but he just smiled and said, "Insurance for both of us." I'd taken that envelope home and put it in the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet in my home office, buried it behind old tax returns and random paperwork. And then I'd completely forgotten about it. Until that exact moment. I got out of the car and went straight to my office. Found the envelope exactly where I'd left it. It was still thick and heavy, sealed tight. David's handwriting was on the front. "For Marcus Anderson, open when necessary." I sat down at my desk and held the envelope for a few minutes. Part of me wanted to rip it open immediately and see what was inside. Another part of me hesitated because I knew that once I opened it, whatever was in there would change everything. There was no going back. I thought about David, about all those Tuesday lunches, about the way he'd sometimes look at me during our conversations. Like he was evaluating something, preparing me for something I didn't understand yet. About 6 months before he died, he'd said something that stuck with me. We were discussing business succession and planning, and he seemed distracted, thoughtful. He said, "You need protection and guarantees in this world, Marcus. Can't rely on loyalty anymore. Not even from family." I opened the envelope. Inside were 3 things: a thick stack of legal documents, a USB drive, and a handwritten letter on David's personal stationery. I started with the letter. "Marcus," it began, "if you're reading this, I'm either gone or things have gone seriously wrong. Probably both. I need you to understand what I've done and why I did it." He explained that 7 years ago, when I married Jennifer, he saw potential in me, not just as a person, but as a leader. Someone who genuinely understood the business, who cared about the people working there, not just the profit margins. Someone who reminded him of himself 30 years ago when he was building the company from nothing. He wrote that Jennifer was brilliant at sales and incredibly charismatic. She could close any deal she wanted, but she didn't understand operations at all. Didn't care about building things that would last. She wanted immediate results, immediate profits, immediate status. He'd watched her his entire life and loved her deeply, but he didn't trust her with his legacy. He didn't trust her to take care of the employees or maintain the standards he'd built over 3 decades. So he'd created what he called a fail-safe, a silent partnership structure that gave me controlling interest in Mitchell Industries, 65% ownership through a private holding company, all legal, all properly documented, all verified by the best corporate attorneys money could buy. The board didn't know about it. Jennifer didn't know about it. The structure was designed to activate automatically upon his end, or whenever I chose to formalize it. I had complete authority to reveal this ownership at any time. He wrote, "I did this because I believe you'll protect what I built. You'll take care of the employees, You'll maintain the standards we established together. You'll do what's right, not what's most profitable in the short term. Use this wisely. Use this when you need it. And know that I'm counting on you. David. I read that letter 3 times, each time feeling more overwhelmed. Then I opened the legal documents. Partnership agreements, corporate filings, share certificates, transfer documents. Everything signed, notarized, and dated. The holding company was called Anderson Strategic Holdings, and it had been established 5 years ago. David had initially funded it, then transferred majority shares to me through a series of completely legitimate transactions disguised as consulting fees and performance bonuses over the years. The USB drive contained digital copies of absolutely everything, plus encrypted financial records showing the complete paper trail. Nothing questionable, nothing that could be challenged in court. It was airtight. My phone buzzed. Text message from Jennifer. You need to vacate the house by end of week. It's company property. I stared at that message for a solid minute. The house wasn't company property. I'd inherited it from my mother 3 years ago when she passed away. Jennifer knew that perfectly well. She was testing me, seeing if I'd just fold and do whatever she said. I didn't respond. Instead, I called the attorney whose name was listed in David's documents. A lawyer named Robert Thompson from a downtown firm I'd never heard of. Mr. Anderson, he answered on the second ring. I've been expecting your call. I'm very sorry for your loss. David was a good man. You knew he died? I've been monitoring the situation. David left very specific instructions about when and how to proceed. When are you available to meet? Right now. Today. Come to my office. I'll clear my schedule. Thompson's office was in a professional building near the courthouse. A small operation, just him and a paralegal. He was probably 60 years old, gray hair, expensive suit, sharp, intelligent eyes, behind wire-rimmed glasses. He offered me coffee. I declined. We sat down in his conference room. How much do you know about your ownership position? He asked. Just what was in the envelope. I need you to tell me if this is actually legitimate. Thompson smiled. It's absolutely legitimate. I structured it myself 5 years ago. David was very specific about his concerns regarding succession. He wanted protection for the company and protection for you. This arrangement accomplishes both. So I actually own 65% of Mitchell Industries? Through Anderson Strategic Holdings, yes. You're the sole owner and operator of that entity, which makes you the majority shareholder of Mitchell Industries. You have complete control. You can call emergency board meetings, remove executives, make any operational decision you want. I leaned back in my chair trying to process this. Why didn't David just put this in his will? Because wills are public documents. They can be challenged in court. Family members can contest them, claim diminished capacity, argue undue influence. This way, your ownership was established years ago through legitimate business transactions. It's completely unassailable. Your wife can't claim it was a deathbed decision made when David wasn't thinking clearly. Can't challenge it in probate court. The ownership was established when David was 58 years old, in perfect health, with full mental capacity. She doesn't know about any of this. Correct. David specifically requested that the arrangement remain confidential unless and until you chose to activate it. Has something happened that makes you want to formalize your position? I told him everything, the firing, how she'd treated me, the security escort, the text message about the house. Thompson took detailed notes and nodded occasionally. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. She's making a catastrophic mistake. She thinks she has all the power. She doesn't. You do. The question is what you want to do with it. What are my options? You can reveal your ownership immediately, call an emergency board meeting, assume control, and remove her as CEO. Or you can wait, watch what she does, document her decisions, and then make your move when it's most strategically advantageous. I thought about David and the way he always operated. Patient, calculated, never impulsive. I want to wait. Let her show her hand. Document everything she does. Then, when I make my move, it's decisive, and she can't fight back. Thompson nodded approvingly. Smart approach. I recommend we schedule an emergency board meeting for next Monday morning at 9 o'clock. That gives us time to prepare everything properly and gives her enough rope to hang herself with bad decisions. Can we just call a board meeting like that? As majority shareholder, you can call one whenever you want. I'll send formal notices to all board members tomorrow. They're legally required to attend. She's going to lose her mind when she gets that notice. Yes, Thompson said with a slight smile. She will, which is why we'll make it very official, very legal, and impossible to ignore or dismiss. I left Thompson's office feeling completely surreal. 4 hours earlier, I'd been unemployed, kicked out of the company I'd helped build for 7 years. Now I owned it, controlled it, had the power to undo everything Jennifer had just done. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Jennifer. Did you hear me? You need to leave the house. Don't make this difficult. I typed back one word, no. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, then stopped. No response came. Over the next week, I watched from a distance while former colleagues kept me updated. People who'd worked with me for years, people who were genuinely confused and angry about my sudden departure. Angela from accounting called me Tuesday evening. Marcus, what the hell happened? Nobody here understands why you're gone. Ask the new CEO, I said. We did. She said it was performance related. That's complete garbage. Everyone knows you kept production running smoothly for years. What else is she doing? Angela hesitated, then lowered her voice. A lot. She fired 3 department heads yesterday. Just walked in and terminated them. Brought in her own people to replace them. None of them know anything about manufacturing. And she hired this expensive consultant, some guy named Blake who follows her around everywhere taking notes. Young guy, expensive suits, drives a Porsche. Supposedly, he's here for business optimization, but he doesn't talk to anyone on the production floor. Just has these private meetings with her behind closed doors. Wednesday, Thomas from operations texted me. Dude, she's spending money like it's going out of style. Had the entire executive floor renovated. New furniture, new carpeting, new artwork, everything. Must have cost at least $200K. And she bought herself a Range Rover and put it on the company lease program. Meanwhile, she's cutting costs everywhere else and freezing raises for everyone. Thursday, Linda from HR called me and she was upset, almost crying. Marcus, she's making me process terminations for people who've been here 15 years. Good people, loyal people who work directly with David. And then she's hiring replacements at half the salary with 0 experience. This isn't what David would have wanted. This isn't what the company stands for. Document everything, I told her. Keep copies of all termination paperwork, all hiring decisions, everything she does. Why, are you planning something? Just do it, Linda. Trust me. Friday afternoon, Jennifer showed up at my house. Didn't knock or ring the doorbell, just used her key and walked right in like she owned the place. I was sitting in the living room, reading through more of David's documents and making notes. You're still here, she said. She sounded angry and impatient. I live here. Not anymore. I told you to leave. I looked up from my papers. This house belonged to my mother. She left it to me when she died 3 years ago. You have no legal claim to it whatsoever. You know that. Everything you have is because of my father. This marriage, your job, all of it came from him. Interesting perspective. She walked closer and stood over me, trying to intimidate me. Sign this separation agreement. I had my lawyer send you. Move out. Make this easy on yourself. Or what? Or I'll make your life very difficult. I have lawyers, I have resources, you have nothing. I smiled. I couldn't help it. The irony was just too perfect. What's funny? She demanded. Nothing. Just thinking about something your father told me once. What? He said never underestimate people, even when you think you have all the power, especially then. She stared at me, trying to read my expression, trying to figure out what I knew. You're pathetic. Sitting here in this house, clinging to the past. My father felt sorry for you. That's the only reason he kept you around. Is that what you think? It's what I know. He told me you were competent but limited, good at taking orders, bad at making decisions. That's why he never promoted you higher than operations director. I nodded slowly. Interesting. What else did he tell you? That the company needed fresh leadership, someone willing to make bold moves. He was preparing me to take over for years. Those Tuesday lunches you two had? Those were about operations, day-to-day details. He talked to me about strategy, about the big picture. Okay, don't patronize me. I'm CEO now. I'm in charge and you're nobody. You're nothing. I went back to reading my documents, didn't respond. I want you out by Sunday, she said. If you're still here Monday, I'm changing the locks. You can't change locks on a house you don't own. That's illegal. Watch me. She left and slammed the door. I heard her tires squealing as she pulled out of the driveway. I immediately texted Thompson. She just threatened to illegally change the locks on my house. Can we move the board meeting up? He called me back within minutes. What happened? I explained the confrontation. Monday still works better, Thompson said. Gives us the weekend to finalize everything and gives her more time to make mistakes. Has she done anything particularly egregious yet? I told him about the 3 fired department heads, the massive spending on renovations, the Range Rover, and the useless consultant. Good, Thompson said. Let her keep going. The board will see a pattern of poor judgment. Makes our case much stronger when we reveal your ownership. Saturday morning, I got a call from Daniel, one of the production supervisors I'd hired and trained myself. Marcus, you need to know something. She's in a meeting right now with executives from Summit Industries. They're interested in buying our automotive parts division. What? That division generates 40% of our revenue? I know. But apparently Summit offered her a significant finder's fee. Personal compensation if the sale goes through. How do you know this? I was setting up the conference room for their meeting. I heard them talking before they realized I was there. Once they saw me, they immediately stopped. But I heard enough to understand what's happening. A finder's fee. Personal compensation for selling off company assets. That was beyond stupid. That was potentially illegal and definitely unethical. Thanks, Daniel. Don't mention this conversation to anyone else. I called Thompson again. We need to stop her from selling the automotive division. She can't sell anything without board approval. What if the board approves it? As majority shareholder, you can veto any sale, but we should let her present it at Monday's meeting. Let the board see what she's trying to do. Then you shut it down. Maximum impact. Sunday evening, Jennifer sent one final text. Last chance. Leave tonight or face serious consequences. I didn't respond. Monday morning, I woke up at 6, showered, and put on my best suit. The charcoal gray one that David had once complimented me on. You look like a CEO in that suit, he'd said with a smile. I drove to the office and arrived at 8:30. Thompson was already there, waiting in the parking lot with 2 other attorneys from his firm. Ready? He asked. Absolutely. We walked into the building together. The receptionist recognized me and looked confused. Mr. Anderson, you're not supposed to be here. Board meeting, I said calmly and kept walking. We took the elevator to the 3rd floor conference room. Board members were arriving, 6 of them total, people who'd worked with David for decades. They nodded at me, clearly surprised to see me but too professional to ask questions yet. Jennifer arrived at 8:55, walked into the conference room, saw me sitting at the table, and froze completely. What are you doing here? Thompson stood up. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm Robert Thompson, representing Mr. Anderson. He has every right to be at this meeting. In fact, he called it. He can't call board meetings. He's not even employed here anymore. Actually, as majority shareholder of Mitchell Industries, he can call meetings whenever he wants. Shall we begin? The conference room went completely silent. Every single board member stared at Thompson, then at me, then at Jennifer. Her face turned bright red. This is absurd. Someone call security. Mrs. Mitchell, please sit down, said Robert McConnell, the longest-serving board member. He was 70 years old and had been David's very first business partner. Let's hear what this is about. There's nothing to hear. My ex-husband is trespassing. We're not divorced, I said quietly, and I'm not trespassing. Thompson opened his briefcase and removed a thick folder. He distributed copies around the table to each board member. Gentlemen, what you're looking at is complete documentation of Mr. Anderson's ownership position in Mitchell Industries through a holding company called Anderson Strategic Holdings. He owns 65% of this company, making him the majority shareholder. The board members started reading, flipping through pages, checking signatures and dates. Jennifer grabbed a copy and scanned through it, then laughed. It sounded forced and desperate. This is fake. Some kind of elaborate fraud. It's not fake, Thompson said calmly. Every single document has been verified, notarized, and filed appropriately with state and federal agencies. David Mitchell established this ownership structure 5 years ago. Your father specifically designed it this way. My father would never give controlling interest to him. Never. Robert McConnell looked up from his copy. These signatures are definitely authentic. I recognize David's handwriting and signature, and these corporate filings are dated and officially stamped. This appears completely legitimate. It's not possible, Jennifer said, her voice rising. I'm CEO. The board appointed me. The board appointed you as interim CEO, I said. Because they didn't know about my ownership position. Now they do. She turned to face the board members. You can't seriously believe this. He's trying to steal the company. Nobody's stealing anything, Thompson said. Mr. Anderson is simply formalizing his legal position, a position your father created and documented extensively over a 5-year period. Patricia Collins, another board member and corporate attorney, spoke up. I've reviewed these documents carefully. They're legitimate. The ownership structure is valid under state corporate law. Mr. Anderson does have majority control. Jennifer slammed her hands on the table. This is a setup, a con. You're all falling for it. Mrs. Mitchell, Robert said calmly, your father and I talked about succession planning many times over the years. He had concerns about impulsive decisions, about protecting the company culture he'd built. I didn't know the specific details of what he'd arranged, but this doesn't surprise me at all. Concerns about me? Concerns about anyone taking over too quickly without proper preparation. David built this company over 30 years. He wanted to make absolutely sure it stayed true to his vision and values. Jennifer looked around the table, getting desperate. So what? You're just going to hand everything to him, just like that? Nobody's handing me anything, I said. I already own it. Have for 5 years. Your father made sure of that. You manipulated him. Took advantage of an old man. Thompson cleared his throat. Mrs. Mitchell, these documents were created when your father was 58 years old, in perfect health, with full mental capacity verified by medical records. Multiple attorneys witnessed and verified his decisions at the time. There's absolutely no legal basis for challenging this. She stared at me with pure hatred. You planned this, waited for him to die so you could take everything. I didn't know about this until last week, I said. Your father never told me. I found the documents after you fired me. Convenient. It's the truth. Ask Thompson. Ask any of these attorneys. I had no idea until I opened the envelope your father left me. What envelope? Robert asked. I pulled out David's handwritten letter and slid it across the table. He left me instructions, told me when to open it, and explained why he did this. Robert read the letter carefully. His expression softened, and he nodded slowly, then passed it to the other board members. Each person read it. Some looked uncomfortable. Others seemed relieved, like this explained things they'd been wondering about. Jennifer tried to grab the letter. Patricia held it away. You should read this. It's from your father. She snatched it and read it quickly. Her hands started shaking. He didn't trust me. His own daughter. He loved you, Robert said gently. But he knew your strengths and your weaknesses, just like he knew all of ours. This isn't personal. It's about protecting what he built. This isn't fair. Fair doesn't matter, I said. Legal matters, and this is completely legal. Thompson spoke again. Given this new information, I believe we need to address several decisions that have been made over the past week. Mr. Anderson has provided documentation of concerning activities. He distributed another set of papers, an itemized list of everything Jennifer had done. The terminations of long-term employees, the excessive spending on office renovations, the consultant with no clear purpose, the Range Rover lease, and the proposed sale of the automotive division to Summit Industries. The board members read through everything. Their expressions ranged from surprise to genuinely angry. You were planning to sell the automotive division? Robert asked Jennifer. It was a good offer. Summit Industries was willing to pay premium market value. That division generates 40% of our revenue, I said. We could use that capital for expansion in other areas. What other areas? I asked. She glared at me, but didn't answer. Patricia flipped to another page in the documents. There's a note here about personal compensation, a finder's fee. That's standard practice in these types of transactions, Jennifer said defensively. How much? Robert asked. She hesitated. $2 million. The room absolutely erupted. Board members started talking over each other, voices raised. Robert raised his hand for silence. You were going to take $2 million personally for selling off 40% of our business? It's normal. Executives get compensated for facilitating major deals. Not when they own the company, I said. But you don't own it. I do, which means that finder's fee would be paid with my money for selling assets I own without my approval. Her mouth opened and closed. No response came. Thompson stood up. Gentlemen, given these circumstances, I move that we address the executive leadership of this company. Anderson, as majority shareholder, has the authority to make personnel decisions, including the removal of the current CEO. You can't do this, Jennifer said. Her voice was cracking now, panic setting in. You can't just... I stood up and looked directly at her. 2 weeks ago, you fired me without any real explanation. You had security escort me out of the building. You treated me like a criminal in front of people I'd worked with for 7 years. You told me I had performance issues and was being eliminated due to restructuring. Marcus, please. Now I'm restructuring. Effective immediately, you're removed as CEO of Mitchell Industries. You'll receive 2 weeks severance pay, which is more than generous considering your performance issues. I let that sink in for a moment. Security will escort you out. Please collect your personal belongings. Your company access will be terminated within the hour. You can't be serious. I pressed the intercom button on the conference table. Security, please come to the boardroom immediately. Marcus, wait. We can talk about this. We can work something out. There's nothing to talk about. This is a business decision, nothing personal. Her own exact words thrown back at her in front of the entire board of directors. The same 2 security guards who'd escorted me out a week ago entered the room. They immediately recognized what was happening. Mrs. Mitchell, Steve said quietly, please come with us. She looked around the table desperately. Someone say something. This is insane. Robert spoke softly. Your father made his choice 7 years ago. We have to respect it. She grabbed her purse and stood up. She looked at me one last time. You'll regret this. No, I said calmly. I won't. They walked her out. The door closed behind them. The conference room was completely silent for a long moment. Finally, Robert smiled. It was small and sad. David knew exactly what he was doing. Yes, he said. He did. The board meeting continued for another 2 hours. We systematically addressed every single decision Jennifer had made, reversed the terminations of the 3 department heads and offered them their jobs back, canceled the unnecessary office renovations, terminated the consultant's contract immediately, returned the Range Rover to the dealer, and shut down any discussion of selling the automotive division. Robert recommended I appoint an interim chief operating officer while I transitioned into the CEO role. You know operations better than anyone here, but you'll need support with the administrative and strategic side while you learn the full scope of the position. I promoted Linda from HR to COO. She'd been with the company 12 years, knew every department inside and out, and understood David's philosophy about treating employees fairly. She accepted immediately, almost crying with relief and gratitude. By noon, the transition was complete, official, and fully documented. I was CEO of Mitchell Industries. I moved into David's office that afternoon. The abstract painting Jennifer had hung was already gone, replaced with the original photo of David and his first employee from 30 years ago. Linda had made sure of it. Thought you'd want this back, she said. Thank you. She hesitated at the door. Marcus, can I ask you something? Of course. Did you know about the ownership before this? Not until she fired me. David left me a sealed envelope years ago and told me to open it if I ever needed protection. I had no idea what was inside until last week. He was a smart man, the smartest. Over the next week, I focused entirely on stabilizing the company. I personally called back the 3 department heads Jennifer had fired. All of them returned, grateful but understandably angry about how they'd been treated. I assured them things would be different now. I met individually with every single team. Production, accounting, sales, logistics, engineering. I told them the truth about David's planning, about the ownership structure he'd created, and that I was taking over as CEO. I promised that things would return to how they were under David's leadership. The employees responded incredibly well. Morale improved almost immediately. People started smiling again in the hallways. The tension that had filled the building for 2 weeks completely vanished. Jennifer tried calling and texting repeatedly. I didn't respond to any of it. Thompson handled all communication with her and her attorneys. She wanted to negotiate, wanted a settlement, wanted to discuss her share of the company. But she had no share. She'd never owned any part of Mitchell Industries. David had left her money, investment accounts, and real estate. But not the business, never the business. Thompson met with her attorneys, and they tried to argue that our marriage entitled her to half of everything I owned. Thompson showed them the prenuptial agreement David had insisted on before our wedding. Very specific language about business ownership remaining completely separate property. Her attorneys knew they had no case. They advised her to accept Thompson's settlement offer, $50,000, final, non-negotiable. She refused at first and threatened to drag everything through court for years. Thompson told her attorneys exactly how that would play out. Public records showing her mismanagement, her attempt to sell company assets for personal profit, her excessive spending, her termination of loyal employees. It would destroy her reputation completely. She signed the settlement agreement 3 days later. The divorce papers came next. I signed them without even reading the details. She could have whatever she wanted from our marriage. The furniture, the art, whatever. I had what actually mattered. 2 weeks after the board meeting, I was working late in the office, going through David's old files, trying to understand how he'd structured different aspects of the business. There was a knock on my door. Robert McConnell walked in. "Got a minute?" "Of course. Please sit down." He sat across from my desk and looked around the office. "Feels right seeing you here." "It's strange for me. I keep expecting David to walk in. He'd be very proud of how you handled everything. I just did what needed to be done." Robert was quiet for a moment. "I need to tell you something about David's planning, something you should know." "Okay." "He talked to me about you 3 years ago, asked my opinion about his succession plan. He was seriously considering making you president of the company, grooming you to eventually take over after he retired. What changed?" "Jennifer found out somehow. She had a massive argument with David about it, accused him of choosing you over her, of not trusting his own daughter. She threatened to never speak to him again if he promoted you above her." I sat back. He never mentioned any of that to me. He wouldn't. David didn't like family conflict, so he backed off from the promotion idea. But he didn't stop planning. He just did it differently, quietly, legally. In a way she couldn't fight or contest. The silent partnership. Exactly. He told me about it 6 months before he died. Told me that if anything happened to him, I should support you and make sure the board understood his intentions. You knew this whole time? I knew he'd protected you somehow. I didn't know the specific details until that board meeting, but yes, I knew his general intentions. Why didn't you say anything when she became CEO? Because David's instructions were very clear. Let events unfold naturally. Don't interfere unless you were directly threatened. Once she fired you, that was the trigger. That's when I knew you'd find the envelope and everything would be revealed. I shook my head. He thought of absolutely everything. That was David, always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. He knew his daughter, knew her weaknesses, knew she'd overreach if given power too quickly. In a way, he was counting on it. That's pretty cold. That's practical. He loved her, but he loved this company more. The people who work here, the legacy he spent 30 years building. He wasn't going to let anyone destroy it, not even family. Robert stood up and extended his hand. "Welcome aboard, Mr. CEO. Officially." I shook his hand firmly. "Thank you for everything you've done. Don't thank me, thank David. He set this entire thing up. I just followed his playbook." 3 months have passed since that board meeting. Mitchell Industries is absolutely thriving now. We secured 2 major contracts worth $15 million combined. Production efficiency has improved by 18%. Employee satisfaction scores reached the highest level in company history. Revenue is up 12%. Profit margins have improved across every division. We're ahead of our projections in literally every metric. I'm standing in David's office on a Friday afternoon looking at the quarterly reports Linda just brought me. Everything is performing better than we expected. Even the automotive division that Jennifer wanted to sell is performing better than ever. I walk over to the window and look down at the production floor below. Workers moving efficiently, equipment running smoothly, everything operating exactly as David envisioned it 30 years ago when he started this company in his garage. My phone buzzes with an email from Robert McConnell. He's officially retiring from the board and recommending his replacement. He thanks me for honoring David's legacy and trusts the company is in good hands. I reply with gratitude. Robert was absolutely crucial during the transition. A steady, experienced hand when everything could have fallen apart. I look back at the photo on the wall. David and his first employee, both young and determined, building something meant to last decades. Something bigger than themselves. I'm keeping my promise, I say quietly to the photo. Protecting what you built, taking care of the people, maintaining the standards we established together. I can almost hear David's voice, that gruff laugh he'd make when I said something he agreed with during our Tuesday lunches. The company is stable, growing, profitable. Everything David worked 30 years to create is safe and thriving, and I'm going to make damn sure it stays that way. I sit back down at the desk and pull out the strategic planning documents for next quarter. There's always work to do, but it's meaningful work, important work, and I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. David saw something in me 7 years ago when I married his daughter. He saw potential, leadership, someone who would protect his legacy when he couldn't do it anymore, someone who actually cared about the people and the work, not just the profits and the status. He was right, and I'm just getting started.